Hey everybody, Jason and John here for Everyday Crypto, sponsored by CryptoTaxShield.com. Jason, thanks for sitting down with me for another episode. We're going to have some fun today.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. So I want to, over the past few days, I kind of been watching Bitcoin in particular. There's been some ups and downs, and so I kind of wanted to start there. And then I've got a couple questions after that, but I want to start with the Bitcoin sort of kind of fluctuating, kind of see where you're coming in on that and your take on that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could, please, if you find any entertainment or educational value in this at all, please like and subscribe. It helps us help you, and we truly appreciate it. And believe it or not, we are not financial advisors. Please do your own research.
Hard to believe, right?
Yeah, so last week, Bitcoin pumped up really heavy past 45, 46, 47,000. Now it's back down. It hit 39. I think now it's at like 41. So people have a lot of opinions on this, right?
Yeah.
I think there's several things going on. I think one, the Bitcoin conference kind of pumped Bitcoin up a little bit, and now it's a little bit of a correction.
Okay.
I also think there's bigger things going on. I do think the macro and micro, spectrum is coming into play here. You got inflation rates coming out higher than expected, which affects all investments, stocks, crypto,
Sure.
precious metals. The Dixie, which is it's the strength of the dollar. It's the graph that measures out the strength of the dollar.
Right.
Dollar's extremely strong right now, so most investments are going to do bad while the dollar's good. But that's very short-term stuff, right? Because the dollar's not going to stay strong forever. It's impossible. You can't print off endlessly and not have inflation in a weak dollar. So,
right.
I also think so. Exchanges, right? Centralized exchanges that sell you your crypto.
Yeah.
Most people don't know this, but they manipulate the markets pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever their order books get low on their top sellers like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they want to buy it back cheap. So they know what the future of crypto is. They don't worry about the price.
Right.
They can easily manipulate it because they've got so much power. I bet there's probably something like that going on. They know that they've got very little inventory of Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Right.
So for them to shake the tree and to dip the market and to grab it up on discount is always beneficial. There's that.
Sure.
We've talked on the show before how leverage trading can end up affecting the market. And once Bitcoin passed 45,000, and that was the level of resistance that everybody was watching. And once it passed it, a lot of investors started betting long, which means they bet the price of Bitcoin is going to go up. But they bet on a leveraged level. So
right.
They bet like anywhere from 2 to 100x on their investment. When whales see this and it's unbalanced heavily,
right,
that's a good time for them to shake the tree and manipulate the market.
Okay.
Liquidate all the investors, and then the market rebounds, which seems like what it's doing today. The tree was shaken, all the liquidations happened, and now it's moving back up like normal.
Makes sense.
That's why I warn people not to leverage trade, because you're playing against the guy who sees your cards at all times. The exchanges know exactly where you're at,
right,
how much it takes to liquidate you, and how many billions of dollars in crypto they can grab from you.
Sure.
So there's that. I think that's about really what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right, though. What also is a little frustrating for somebody like myself sort of getting into this world is that you have such advantages to decentralization, but then you still got to play the game sometimes where those who are centralized within this ecosystem manipulate things, right? So I think it's a little frustrating. Let's talk about the other thing I wanted to talk to you today about while things are a little quiet sort of in crypto land. Where do you see crypto going? I want to get your perspective on maybe like a 1 year and a 5 year, look at the crystal ball. Where do you see crypto in a year, 5 years from now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So whenever the crypto dips, I get phone calls and text messages and emails from people who are they're freaking out.
Right.
And my buddy came over today and we were talking. He's like, Jason, how come you never freaked out? I'm like, well, it's because I know what it is. I see the future. I don't worry about today's price. I really don't. I'll be honest with you. It used to, like years ago, I used to look at it like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't even bother looking because for me, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin.
Right.
I don't care about its dollar price. I don't care about its ups and downs. I know for a fact that in 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, this thing is just going to grow faster and faster.
Right.
We've seen that so much this year with user adoption, within what happened with the war and how Bitcoin came into play and how you're seeing crypto advertising on everything nowadays. Like, for example, today, I think the Dallas Cowboys announced a deal with blockchain.com.
Right.
To name for the stadium rights.
Yep.
You got the Miami Heat. Their stadium is crypto. You got, there's a bunch of others now. There's something now I forget, right?
Yep.
So I think within the next year, you're going to see so much advertising related to crypto on everything major. Like, you're going to tell, like, all major sports has already been affected by the advertising of crypto.
Sure.
But I think you're going to see that more so, right? I think you'll see it more on TV. I think you'll see it more tech-type companies like NVIDIA, who makes, computer chips, right, or Microsoft, Apple. I think you'll see a lot of integration, right, with crypto. And I think all this is just that that slow eating of the world. And I always compare it to the internet because it's so similar. For one, blockchain technology is like the newest. It's like the next version of the internet. Sure. People understand that, but it really is. Yeah. It just does way more. Right. So when the internet first came out, no one understood it. Like, no one understood why it was important and why they needed to do it, and how it was going to eat their lives and change their lives. And it took a little bit of time, but you woke up one day and you realized, oh, I can't live without this. That's right. Right. And I think that's where, I think a year from now, we'll be more so on that level. Right. For me, the 5-year mark is way more interesting, right? I think that 5-year mark, that's when you're going to see nations, right, who are having fluctuating currencies, which is every nation on earth at this point. There's not, I don't know if one that's not. Right. I think you're going to see what's called financial warfare via Bitcoin. Interesting. Yeah. People who understand what Bitcoin is, they understand it's the most pristine asset on earth. Right. It's time tested. It's unchangeable. It's on a course of its own that nobody can stop. Reliable. There's very little of it. It can't be diluted. It can't be hacked. It can't. In the world that we're living in, that's every day growing more so into the interwebs. Bitcoin will be the most pristine asset within that environment. Right. And 5 years from now, when nations are playing warfare via Bitcoin, you're going to see, a multi-million-dollar Bitcoin. Right. I really believe that. I was listening to this guy from MIT speak on this matter, and that's what he does his whole life. And he's obviously a professor at MIT, so he's a super genius. Sure. He was explaining this on a level that I couldn't even imagine. As much time as I spend in this space, he was almost telling me, look, you don't even get it. Right. He goes, when the first major player within our economy on the globe jumps in on this, every other major player will then have to jump in heavier. Right. They cannot give out an advantage to their competitor. Like China can't give us that advantage. We can't give that advantage to Russia. Right. The European Union can't lose that advantage to another country, right? And when those guys come in, so the total market cap of crypto is $1.8 trillion right now. That might sound like a lot of money, but for an asset class, it's still a child. It's still like an infinite. It's very small. That's why it's manipulatable. But when these players come in, they don't come in with millions or billions. They come in with trillions. Right. And when that happens, it's a money grab, and there's a supply shock, and it's going to be very interesting when that happens. It's not really a matter of if it happens. Yeah. I know it's going to happen for sure. Sure. It's just a matter of when does it kick in? Like, is there some sort of event down the road like COVID that happens that kicks it in? Because really COVID, prior to COVID, no one talked about crypto. Yep. It was really quiet. I think Bitcoin was sitting at right after crypto, it was at like $3,000. Now it's $40,000, right? was only a couple of years ago. That's how much growth we've had then.
Right.
But COVID exposed what a lot of people who are believers in precious metals already knew, and that's that currencies are unpredictable. They can be inflated, and they are inflated on the daily.
Right.
And you shouldn't rely on them against long-term wealth because your dollar and every other currency on earth is melting. You just maybe you don't notice it, but it is. Like the buying power of your dollar has gone down considerably.
Right.
That's not going to slow down. Like a Corvette in the 1960s was like $3,000. Now it's 60, 70, 100 grand, right? Like this is what happens to money. That's not going to happen to Bitcoin because it cannot be inflated. Like it cannot be diluted.
Yeah.
So, and people, my buddy was asking me, was like, well, why don't governments just, invent their own Bitcoin or their own? I was like, yeah, they're going to. They're doing it right now. Yeah. They're called CBDCs, cross-border digital currencies. But it's not the same. Those are going to be used to track you more so.
Right.
Those are going to be used to be able to shut down your funds with a push of a button. You won't be able to hide CBDCs underneath your bed like my grandfather used to hide his money underneath his bed,
Absolutely.
So they won't be like Bitcoin.
Right.
They will be ran by centralized governments, whereas Bitcoin is completely decentralized. There's nobody pushing a button. It's ran by the people, and it's owned by nobody. It's owned by everybody.
Right.
So that's why the answer isn't CBDCs. In fact, a lot of guys ask me, they go, are you afraid CBDCs will just kind of make crypto obsolete?
Yeah.
Like, not at all, because they won't be what crypto is. They will be they'll be a digital currency, but they won't be crypto. They'll still be extremely centralized and manipulatable.
Yeah.
The government can print off trillions of dollars whenever it wants, and it does. But when it's a CBDC, they don't have to print it off. They just push a button.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, if you just replace fiat with a digital version of it, it's still the same thing, except you're right. You can press a button and make an infinite amount of it, which then makes it worth nothing. I mean, yeah.
And do you really want to be tracked even more so? Like, we're already being tracked by our phone and all the apps and the little devices in my wife got this little device, she likes it. It does what she tells it to.
Yeah, right.
Every once in a while, it'll pop in on one of my conversations, and I'm like, "Oh my god! Like, this is so crazy. I hate it so much." Like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. People don't realize, for the first time in forever, oil was not the biggest asset or commodity on Earth.
Right.
As of last year, information was.
Yep.
Information is insanely valuable. That's why Facebook and Google and all these apps, they track your information because they give you a product for free, like Facebook, which you enjoy. Well, you see your friends, you say hi, you laugh at funny dog stuff. So that's cool.
Right.
But they're tracking your information. And they're selling that information. Information is insanely valuable. And how much of it do you want out of your hands? Yep. When a CBDC becomes your go-to spending choice, which will probably have to be. I'm sure they'll make paper money illegal at that point.
Right.
They will know every penny you spend and where you spend it and why.
Right.
And people say, well, I don't worry about that. I don't do anything illegal. Yeah, I understand that. That's cool. I don't want to do anything illegal either, but I still want my privacy.
100%.
And here's the thing about that whole conversation. Your privacy is taken away from you, and maybe you don't notice it until you do. But when you do, it's too late. You can't go backwards. I mean, I'm sure the Germans in World War II, they didn't realize what they were getting involved in until it was too late.
Yep.
That's what I'm talking about, the German citizens, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, they didn't know what was going on with the concentration camps and all the other stuff. Like, they just didn't know. And like in Russia, a lot of their citizens don't even know what's going on now either. So it's one of those things, like, censorship isn't scary until it is.
Oh, yeah.
And if you ever read, like, 1984.
Of course. Yep.
This is where we're at. It doesn't stop. Here's a really scary thing. I'm so bullish on everything that's going on with crypto, and I love it. But when I see where humanity is going at a hyper speed,
right,
it is terrifying. We're destroying this planet at an alarming rate. We don't have another planet. Like, there's getting off this planet, people don't realize, is pretty much an impossibility. The next livable planet is light years away, and you have to travel at the speed of light to a light year. Like, it's insane. You can't even travel even close to that.
Right.
So we got that, and we got censorship, and we got all our information is being gathered against us, and we have centralized entities that have that information, and there's so much power in that. So I think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I think crypto is the answer to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there'll be a fight in between governments and the people. I really do. I kind of feel like, I don't want to sound like an alarmist or anything, but
sure.
But governments don't give up power. Like, we say we're democratic, but if we all just decide, hey, look, we voted and we want you guys to have less power, they'd be like, no.
Right.
No, that's not how we do this, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, and that's a rabbit hole we could do 3 hours on. But when the government who proposes to be sort of looking out for us passes laws that they make themselves exempt from, that should tell you everything you need to know about whether or not the government has your best interest at heart, particularly when it comes to money and spending and freedom, essentially, to do so.
You don't have to go that far back in history to know how this whole thing plays out. So something happens, and the governments of the world get together and they say, okay, how do we spin this?
Right.
So, 9/11 happened. That was a horrible situation.
Sure.
But then what happened afterwards? Well, we invaded Iraq, who really had nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But, we wanted those natural resources and the rights to them.
Yep.
And so governments will usually say, like, something like COVID happens, and let's print off a lot of money, and we're here to help you. But if you really read the bills, like the Patriot Act or whatever like that, that's where we lost a lot of our information freedom.
Yep.
But they didn't tell us that. They told us, hey, look, we're doing this to help you guys.
That's right. Oh, I know.
They are opportunists to the max.
Yep.
And the reason why that is because they're owned by very rich and powerful organizations.
Absolutely.
I always think it's weird. Like, the last few years, we've had a handful of clowns that we've had to choose from as president of the world's best country on earth.
Mm-hmm.
How's that possible?
Right.
How's that possible? Really, to be honest with you, a country that's got 330 million people, those are the two we're arguing about?
Right. It's terrible. Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think we've also come to a place as a society, as a people, where we're sort of okay with giving up a little bit of liberty for a little bit of comfort, and it's done incrementally until one day you look around and go, what the hell happened? How did this happen? Well, a lot of us see it happening, and that's what the beautiful part of crypto is worldwide. It brings that balance even a little bit closer to back to even. I don't know that it'll ever be even, where the people have, but it does a lot. It gets us a little bit further down the road. So I think it's so important. And I do think you're right. I think there's going to be a battle someday, but I think crypto's going to win. I mean, there's no way to compete with it in terms of function and access and usability. So,
yeah, when people figure out what's really going on and that they've lost a lot of their freedom,
yep,
maybe they didn't realize. They realize the power of decentralization.
Right.
There's that, but also, so there's that, right? And then there's the tech play. I think the tech play is going to be the fast adoption.
Right.
The Facebooks, the NVIDIAs, the Googles, the whatever. They're already jumping in, but they're going to jump in heavier and heavier and faster and faster.
Mm-hmm.
And then Michael Saylor was talking about a year ago when he jumped in and bought a bunch of Bitcoin on their corporate books, which was the first American corporation to do that. So it was very risky for him at that point, but it's paid off massive dividends. Like, they've made so much money off that investment.
Mm-hmm.
He said a year ago, he goes, look, I know for a fact, and by the way, if you don't know who Michael Saylor is, he's like one of the most respected, longest running CEOs in America. A self-made billionaire that was a rocket scientist, and he's just super smart, but very easy to understand when he talks, right?
Right.
He said, look, here's the deal. I know for a fact, because I run in these circles, that pretty much every major corporation in America is going to jump in.
Yeah.
It's just they move very slow. They've got board members. They got stockholders. They got so many things to take into consideration. It's a very risky play for them, even though they know it's the right one.
Right.
Michael Saylor can do this because he's a a monster shareholder in his own company. They can't really vote him out.
Right.
But most CEOs don't have that power. Most CEOs, if they make a monster move and it backfires, they get voted out real quick.
Oh, yeah.
But so that's just a matter of time. I think within a year, you'll see almost pretty much every corporation and business have Bitcoin on their balance sheets. I think Bitcoin will be an ETF within America, which will give traditional investors more accessibility into the investment angle of Bitcoin.
Right.
I think all this is just so bullish. That's why I don't worry about the price of Bitcoin. I really don't. Yeah. Like, I know for a fact 5 years from now it's going to be way higher than it is now.
For sure.
So if it fluctuates today, I don't really care, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That's awesome. Jason, thank you so much, man. This is all good info. Yeah. We went down some fun avenues too. It's really good. I like that kind of stuff. I get into it. And if I don't kill it now, we'll be here for 3 hours. So
yeah.
No, I appreciate you taking some time. We'll do another one very, very soon. Everybody, CryptoTaxShield.com. Jason, thanks so much. And we'll do another one soon.
All right. You bet.
All right. Take care.